Hmm. Good evening. Namaste to all of you. Thank you for joining me here on this Sunday, April 2nd, for Sunday Night Alive. My name is Reverend Denise Schubert, and I come together with you once a week to explore topics of interest to us on a spiritual level, from a spiritual perspective. How do we live, survive, and thrive in a world gone mad, which is our topic for tonight? I'm sorry, the answer is always the same, so we won't get too much anything new tonight, but I'm very happy to be here, and I think that it always it's worthy of a reminder that we are not the circumstances of the world. We're not the circumstances of our own life. We are so much more than that, and that we can cultivate practical tools and ways of being, thinking, and doing that help us to live our best life ever and to make a difference on the planet. So thank you for joining me. I'm going to speak a word of blessing, but I've been wanting to start our Sundays with a little bit of humor. So I'm going to start with a piece called A Good Deed. So this guy, he's at the pearly gates, waiting to be admitted, when St. Peter is leafing through the big book and to see if the guy's worthy of entering, if he's earned his right to enter heaven. St. Peter goes through the book several times, furrows his brow, and says to the guy, I just can't see that you've done anything good in your life, but you never did anything bad either. Can tell you what, if you can tell me of one really good thing that you did in your life, you're in. So the guy thinks for a moment and says, well, there was the time when I was driving down the highway and I saw a group of biker guys gathered around this poor girl. So I slowed down my car to see what was going on, and sure enough, there were about 20 guys harassing this poor woman. I was infuriated, so I got out of my car, I grabbed a tire iron out of my trunk, and I walked straight up to the leader of this gang. He was a huge guy with a studded jacket, a chain running from his nose to his ear. But I walked up to this guy. The gang formed a circle around me, so I ripped the leader's chain off his face and smashed him over the head with the tire iron. I then turned around and yelled at the rest of them, leave this poor innocent girl alone. You're all a bunch of sick, deranged animals. Go home, or I'll teach you all a lesson in pain. St. Peter, was really impressed, and he said, well, when did this all happen? The guy said, oh, about 2 minutes ago. Har har. Okay. Hope that made a couple of you chuckle. So take a moment with me and let's breathe just for a second to get here together, to create a little community together. If you are here with me, please say hello on the chat. Oh, Michael, how grateful to see you. I can't see you, but you can see me. So this is the nature of this particular venue for streaming. And I always love seeing your names because it lets me know I'm not just talking to myself into a camera. But let's just take a moment and center ourselves. So take a deep breath with me and just turn within. I invite you to let anything heavy on your heart or your mind simply go for the moment. Just release it. As we turn within to that place within us that is, it is sacred, it is holy, it is connected to all that is. It is connected to not only the creator of the universe, but also to each other. And so it is in that consciousness of connection that I just speak a word of blessing upon our time here tonight, knowing that if we're here, we have taken the time to be here. So it is a commitment. It is a commitment of energy to say, I will be here tonight in order to discover something, to think something, to participate in something. And so because of that, I know that we are fulfilled in the moment, that whatever transpires is a blessing to each and every one of us, and that we as a collective are a blessing to the world. So I'm grateful for your presence. I'm grateful for this opportunity to connect. We give thanks for it and let it be, and so it is. Amen. Amen. So the question, I offered up a question to someone, like what would be of interest to talk about? And it's interesting because everybody wants to talk about the same thing a little bit right now, which is how do we live in the world the way that it is? And I called it in a mad world. How do we live in a world gone mad? How do we live in a world in which there's so much violence and so much fear and so much worry and so much doubt? I mean, it's not as if it's new, but it is a little escalated in this moment. And so I would invite you in this moment that we're going to go, hi Jan, we're going to go, that this particular stream is for metaphysicians. It's not for the weak of heart, because there isn't an easy way around the answer to this question, because it is a metaphysical answer. There's nothing in the world that can solve the dilemma that we are in. There's nothing in the world that can answer the question that's being asked. There's nothing really to do on a human level which can alleviate the suffering and the violence, really. The answer to the question is a spiritual answer. And it has something to do with faith, trust, and surrender. It has something to do with harnessing and monitoring your attention. It has something to do with taking a stand for not buying into the appearance of duality. Now, there are two concerns everyone brings into this question. And the question of thriving, by the way, is a twofold question. It's really, how do I personally thrive? How do I, in my life, get my needs met? How do I live here and experience happiness and fulfillment and joy and health and abundance? And then the second question is, how does my doing that, how can I make a difference in the world that suffers so much? Like, how can my little human self matter to the world? And the answer isn't really different for both, because if you remember, I'm a Joel Goldsmith fan, and I loved his book, Living Between Two Worlds. So the truth is, for us, we are incarnated in a human body, and nobody in the first, very few of us, if you're an exception, I apologize, but I think very few of us were given the rule book for living. Very few of us were given what we needed. Very few of us we're told, here's your role in the world, and here's how you participate, and here's how you ensure your happiness and the happiness of all other living beings. None of us were ever told that. So unfortunately, we grew up like everyone else grows up, conditioned to our neuroses. We're conditioned to our illnesses and our dis-eases. We're conditioned to whatever it is our family and our culture told us. So for most of us, we have to awaken to the idea that it's both and, that we're both human and spiritual. And that once we discover the spiritual nature of our being, or the spiritual nature of the universe, we then have more choice and more decisions that we can make. We have more options, because until then, there's no options. Until you awaken to a new possibility, life will be a rerun, because it's just the nature of how spiritual laws and principles work. So here's the part for the metaphysicians among us tonight. This world is, sorry, I'm trying to think, but the most powerful way to say this. So God, or universal intelligence or the quantum field of unlimited possibilities created a perfect world. And the world that has been created by God is perfect. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It's orderly. It's harmonious. It's abundant. It's paradise. And nothing has ever changed that. That universe still lives parallel to our human universe today. So the possibility as we're walking through life is to live in that world or to live in the world that human beings have created, independent of their awareness of their spiritual nature, which is a mess. And I'm a realist. It is a mess. I watch the news just like everyone else. I'm doing my prayers over the news just like everyone else. And the question is, how do we thrive and make a difference in the world today? And how do we do that with pandemics? How do we do that with, the particular question I got had to do with age, and I'm also a young senior citizen, but I am 72 in anybody's book. That is definitely a senior. I'm definitely in the wise elder genre. I'm definitely in the crone, the domain of crone, the wise women. Old aging people have a different question than younger people do. Aging people have a question: how do I thrive and live with an aching body and the awareness that my time in this incarnation is on the down low rather than the high low? Young people have a whole different question because they want to know how to impact this world. How does a 25-year-old make a difference in the world today? And many of them don't see how to do that. So mostly they're disconnected from the future, and disinterested isn't quite the right word, but I think probably paralyzed by how it doesn't look like there is anything to do. So I want to bring it back in because really the thing to do is to lean back into spiritual truth. Now, here's where I'm at. And I know that I'm a little far left, maybe for some people, but I do think that life is in charge. I don't think I'm in charge. I don't think you're in charge. I don't think human beings have the capacity or the cleverness or the wisdom to undo what God has done. And I don't think that we're in charge of trees or the ozone layer. I think that we have the opportunity to participate fully from a consciousness of love, which will have everything thrive and survive. But if we don't, ultimately, we're all eternal energy. There is no birth or death, that somehow it's all going to work out in the end, because as Gandhi said, love always wins. Love always wins. So I think we can take our attention, I think we should take our attention off of what's not working, what seems to be broken, what seems to be doomsday, what seems to be going to hell in a handbasket, what seems to be unsolvable. I think as metaphysicians, we need to lean into a deeper truth, which is that one, love always wins, and love will win in your situation, whether it's personal or global. Love will win. And we have some way of being that will help contribute to that, because as metaphysicians, we know that all thought is creative, all emotions are creative, all attitudes and beliefs are creative. So whatever you're walking around with is part of the energy field that is creating circumstances and conditions and forms. So you and I, as metaphysicians, we must accept that and begin to live from that truth, because it will govern what we say, what we think, what we do. Now, let's make this practical, right? This is Sunday Night Alive, practical spirituality. Do not think that casual conversation at the water cooler, criticizing and blaming, fill in the blanks, is meaningless. It's not meaningless. It has all kinds of meaning. don't think that the complaining or the blaming or the shaming that we do is justified in any way, no matter who we're doing it to, because it just contributes to the negativity and that which perpetuates this environment of violence and anger. So it kind of brings me back to a little bit something I've loved talking about really my whole ministerial career is really Ernest Holmes saying, be for something and against nothing. He said, wouldn't it be wonderful if a whole group of people arrived on earth for something and against nothing? And this is such a radical invitation because it's so easy to be against, the people who who perpetuate violence against other people. So easy to perpetuate the Russians victimizing the Ukrainians. It's just so easy and so natural as a human being. But when we're living between two worlds, if you in the Bible it says you cannot choose two masters. You cannot serve love and fear at the same time. You have to choose one. So you and I are charged with choosing love under any circumstances. So on a personal level, to thrive and survive, to survive and thrive on a personal level, is to also, by the way, contribute to the global level. But we can't really do that if we personally are not thriving and surviving. So thriving and surviving starts with you. So it's a decision. I'm going to say to you, that's a decision you're going to make. Now, I think it's threefold for us. One is, you all know I love the book by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, where he talks about embracing the word unconditional. Let's go back to God for just one moment. So this thing we're talking about when we talk about God, I'm not talking about a man in a cloud. I'm not talking about that God. I'm not talking about a God that punishes and judges. I'm not talking about that God either. I'm really talking about the love, intelligence, and the beauty that created this natural universe we live in. And if you were to, for a moment, be able to take off human consciousness, disconnected human consciousness, if you were to take that off the planet, what would be left is nothing but intelligence and beauty. That's all that would be left. You would be left with the tides and the stars and the rotating planets and the birth and death of animals and the photosynthesis and hummingbirds and bees. You would be left with so much self-evident proof of the intelligence and beauty that I am calling God. Now, when we talk about God, we're talking about something that is, the words have been used, omnipresent, absent, everywhere present, nowhere absent, not in you and not in them. So there is no, God doesn't play favorites. There's no, I'm going to go be with that person, but not with that person because they're green and you're blue. That doesn't exist in God. God is omnipresent, everywhere present in its fullness. Omniscient, all-knowing, aware of everything. Now, not like a God. We were raised to think that 7 billion people are doing, dear God, please save my family. We're not talking about a God that hears those kinds of prayers. We're talking about a God that knows, that is, that we all live and move and have our beingness in the intelligence, like leaves on a tree, like grains of sand on the beach, like snowflakes, where we are, God is everywhere present. So So with that said, uh, omniscient, so all-knowing, everywhere present, all-powerful. So all-powerful is relating back to what I said about God's in charge of the trees. So when people get upset about cutting down trees, I kind of just say, God's in charge of trees. If we're supposed to have more trees, there'll be more trees. That humans are so impotent in relationship to the love intelligence that created this whole world. So in some ways, I say don't worry about it. Act with love, think with love, because God is all powerful. Love will win in the end. And the final thing is that God's omnibenevolent, which means that God is all good. Like there's no judgment, there's no evil, there's nothing bad. It's just all good. And you and I are a part of that heritage. We are made in the image and likeness of all of that. So this word, unconditional love. So it is said that God is unconditional love. Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith called it agape love, which is deeper love than I love you because you're my mother, I love you because you're my friend, or I love you because you're nice to me. It's like this kind of love is unconditional. And Michael Singer in his book talks about unconditional happiness, where we choose to be happy regardless of the circumstances, regardless of conditions. And that I encourage us to really encourage us to embrace this word unconditional, because Michael Singer would say, most of us would say, oh yeah, I want to be happy. I want to be happy as long as my wife doesn't leave me. Or I want to be happy as long as nobody does anything I don't like. But unconditional means unconditional. So if you and I mean, this is a practice for me. Every day I practice unconditional happiness, unconditional joy. When I notice that something's upsetting me, or I'm having reactions or reactions. If I'm reacting to something in the news or reacting to something someone said, it's like, okay, at what point, where am I giving up my happiness? Where am I giving up my peace? To what am I giving up my peace? And it's a decision you make. Nobody can do this for us. Your thriving and surviving is a choice that you make. You stand at guard at your own consciousness. You stand guard of your consciousness. You're like the gatekeeper. So if you're watching the news and you're finding yourself get angry, turn the news off. Go do something else. I promise you, the Aboriginals in Australia who never watch the news, who don't have newspapers, who are in the middle of nowhere, living their lives, raising their children, hunting and cooking, they have no upset about what we have upsets about, right? They may still have some upsets, but not like we have upsets. So the other thing that you can do for a personal level, which is out of the decision you make to be happy, or out of the decision you make to survive or thrive, is you also make a choice to not have your words and actions and thoughts be violent. Have them be on the side of love. Because remember, you can't really serve love and fear at the same time. You can only serve one. Now, all of this is meaningless that's why tonight is for metaphysicians only. Because these conversations are meaningless to anyone who has not yet seen or experienced, more important actually, or felt their own spiritual nature or the truth of a spiritual something that's greater than we are. Which is why I started this and said faith, trust, and surrender still are the keys to living a happy life. Because once you have that, then you no longer fear death as much. You no longer fear the future as much. You no longer dwell on the past as much. You are more You have a greater capacity to be present in the moment, being a purveyor of love and of compassion, of reconciliation, of forgiveness. So the third piece is of this triune thing is to make it your business in life to live your purpose. Now, some of you might say, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't have a purpose. You do. You do have a purpose. You do. So I suppose your broader purpose is to love unconditionally. I think if God were to come and tell you what your purpose is, your purpose would be to just love people, love yourself, to don't see. The thing is, we cannot get caught up in the drama of the world. One, because it's just drama, and two, it's not even really very real. It's only real to the degree that we believe it to be real, and to the degree that we're holding what's causing it to begin with. So, okay, I have to break that down, I think. So, how can we do this practically? If you have 100 people, and those 100 people are living an ego-driven life, unaware of love as the guiding force and energy on the planet, they're living from us or them, me or you. If you have enough food, I won't have any. So this environment of competition and accumulation. If you have 100 people and 70 of them are living in that place, what you see in the world is going to reflect that back. You're going to see war and conflict and stealing and protecting and all kinds of crazy behavior in this idea that it's for some of us, not all of us. If the majority of those 100 people are in a space of spiritual consciousness and awareness, you're not going to see that same behavior. You're going to see different behaviors, different reactions, different systems, different ways of coping. You and I want to move into the percentage of people who are living for something and against nothing, for love and not against hate, not against violence, not against abuse, not against addiction, not against depression, because that against energy perpetuates the thing we're against. So we literally have to pivot into a different way of thinking and being. There's sorry, back to your purpose. You're thriving. You do have something that is uniquely a gift to you. You do. You have you either write poetry, you teach, you're a caregiver, you're a nurse, a doctor, a teacher, a singer, a writer, a lover of animals, a lover of art. You have something unique to you that's your gift to give to the world during your lifetime. I promise you. And chances are you know what this is already because you've always cared about it. If you could go back in your life to when you were 2 years old, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, my guess is that there's some thread of caring that you've always had about something. It could even be the thing your mother or father says to you, right? Like, stop caring so much about animals, or don't worry so much about old people. But whatever that is, it's your gift. So you will experience surviving and thriving to a greater degree if you are allowing yourself to sing your song, to dance your dance, to write your book, to do that which is yours to do before you die. Because it's your charge. It's your spiritual charge to do those things. So, as you know, I am an ordained religious science minister, and early in my career, the organization, the larger organization, was rebranding itself, and it invented or created, made up the global heart vision, which is the way, because once your life structures are stable, so once somebody begins to awaken to their spiritual identity, to understanding this is a spiritual universe we live in, your life structures will get strong. Your life structures are relationship, health, money, community, work. And for most of us, before we've come out of 100% human living, right? Living between two worlds, the world according to how man has made it and the world according to how God has made it. If we are purely in the world of human beings, our life structures, one or more of them, in most cases, will not be strong. So people suffer. They don't have enough money. They have poor health. And all of that's an absence of love, or an absence of shining the spiritual truth onto something. God's universe is abundant. God's universe is vibrant health. God's universe is organized and harmonious, loving and kind, compassionate, friendly. So once your life structures are solid, it is natural we will begin to focus our attention into the world at large, because in truth, there's only one of us here. There's one begotten Son. So you and I, we are brothers and sisters of the Spirit, and that's true for all 7 billion of us, or 8 billion of us. It is not possible for us to live in a world, to survive and thrive in a world where not everyone is surviving and thriving. So it can't be that I win and you lose. I'm happy and you're miserable, right? The Russians don't get to be happier than the Ukrainians. The Republicans don't get to be happier than Democrats. The gay people don't get to be happier than straight people. Do you understand? The world has to work for all of us. It's a world that works for everyone. And what you can do is to be happy. That's what you can do. But you can do for the world. You don't have to go on a campaign. You don't have to join the Peace Corps. You don't have to write letters to your senator. You can do all those things, but you don't have to. Your contribution to the world working for everyone is to be part of the 70 out of 100 that are for love, for something and against nothing. I wanted to read to you something from the Global Heart Vision, because it's still very pertinent. It says, and I don't know, not all of you are probably part of the Centers for Spiritual Living, but I'm sure there's one near you if you're not already. I know I'm streaming to you from Fort Myers. There's one in Cape Coral. And there's also a Unity Church in Fort Myers and a Unity Church in Naples, which are very similar in terms of philosophy, faith, and way of life. So spiritual communities, vital. In fact, I'm confused about why, at a time when we need spiritual communities so much, I mean, we need each other so much. We need to witness each other's beauty, and we need to support each other in changing. We should all need to find a spiritual community. And I know that the pandemic kind of forced us all to be home watching, Michael Beckwith and Edward Vilhune and all of these people, Deepak Chopra from our living rooms and our bedrooms, but it's not the same. We need to be with each other. So I'm hoping myself to get back into spiritual communities soon. Anyway, Centers for Spiritual Living, this came from the Global Heart Vision, and it says, we see the Centers for Spiritual Living as a global community of inspired individuals caring for and about each other and the entire planetary family, thereby bringing the gift of active compassion and kindness to the world. Our local ministries and communities become points of inspiration and influence, effectively advancing the vision of the global heart to benefit all of life. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought, where each and every person discovers his or her own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a global reality that works for everyone. So essentially, this is saying this most beautiful thing, that you and I are points of inspiration and influence. Inspiration and influence. And to the degree that you can forgive, to the degree that you can bring forth compassion, to the degree that you can release blame, complaining, shaming, diminishing, disrespecting other people, to the degree that you can see the divine in all, even the sinner. God does love saints and sinners alike. God doesn't see our mistakes. God knows that we're vulnerable and fragile to the human condition, and that planted within us is the ability to awaken. Planted within us is the ability to live better lives than if we're not awakened. So you are a point of inspiration and influence. I give you three folds way to improve your own life, which is your best bet on improving the world, which is to practice unconditional happiness, to see where your peace or your happiness is based on something happening in the world. I will be happy when and if my property sells. I will be happy when and if I get married. I will be happy when and if I get divorced. I'll be happy when I lose 5 pounds. You want to remove every condition to your happiness. Michael Singer says, if you can do that, happiness will be your path of awakening. It will be your transformation. But this is true not just for happiness, also true for peace, also true for love, unconditional joy, unconditional contentment. Just see where it's missing and choose to move back into the space of unconditional. If you will do this week, you will have many wonderful things to say to me about this word. Monitor your words and your thoughts, mostly your words. If you stop voicing things, your brain will change. So be careful about disrespecting people, shaming people, blaming people. Maya Angelou said, what you do has very little impact. What really matters is how you make people feel. Because remember, you are a point of inspiration and influence. So if you emanate love, forgiveness, and compassion to your family members, to your parents, your siblings, your kids, your spouse, your coworkers, if you change and become that person, you invite them into the possibility of changing and becoming that person. And then they invite the people in their lives to changing and becoming that person. So when love becomes more important than being right, the whole world will begin to change. And there's really nothing else we can do to contribute to the world that works for everyone other than to change ourselves. And then the third one is obviously to really, if you're not already acting on those inner urges, to way to do it. Volunteer somewhere. Get on a committee in your church. Get on a committee at your 12-step meeting. Whatever, just be of service and live your gifts. Yes, that's the answer. So the answer to how do you survive and thrive in a world gone mad is you decide to thrive and survive. You accept your spiritual identity. You put on the mantle of holiness, and you do what you think God would do. Like, would God say that? Would God do that? Would God condemn that person? What would the universe that created such beauty and intelligence do in that situation that you find yourself in? And see how it feels, right? As Abraham said, I do have some banners here. Abraham Hicks said, in your pain, you offer the world pain, And in your joy, you offer the world joy. So you are in charge of what you offer the world. Now, you might say, a person could say, well, but I'm in too much pain to feel joy. I'm in too much pain to offer joy. And I do concur that there are situations where joy is hard to feel. If you're sick, if a loved one is sick, if a loved one dies, an animal dies, there will be moments, temporary moments of grieving, temporary moments of sadness or anger. But they are temporary, and you just know, faith, trust, and surrender, that you live in a world where there's a power greater than you and greater than us, and that when you remember that, there's always a solution to whatever is taking place, and joy will come. This too shall pass. All right, so that is our lesson for this week, Sunday Night Alive. I'm so grateful that you joined me. If you are not getting my weekly blog, you can sign up at deniseschubert.com. You can also, if you want to offer a tithe or a love offering to my ministry, you can do that as well through my website or through PayPal or Zelle at revdschubert@gmail.com. And that is it. I'm not quite sure what next week's topic is. I'm like a week behind now, but whatever it is, it will come. By the way, if you ever have anything you want me to talk about or address, you can just drop me an email. I'll be happy to address it. My goal here is, one, to remind us that we are spiritual beings, that this universe is beautiful, that you are beautiful, that you are worthy, that life, that what I know about my God, which is also your God, whatever that is happiness is the point. Joy is the point. Fulfillment is the point. There's no God of suffering or lessons or testing us. Our job is to bring forth the inner splendor that is already within us. And then the second point is to really find practical ways of living that contribute to our own well-being and the well-being of the world. All right, so let us end in prayer. I want to, there we are. So let's take a breath to end our time together today. Right, wherever you are, open your heart and your mind to become receptive. If you'd like, close your outer eyes, which allows you to leave conditions, circumstances, that world, living between two worlds, leave the world that man has made outside to do whatever it's going to do in this moment. And this means world news or your own personal circumstances. And as we close our outer eyes, we can open our inner eyes and gaze into the space and the place within us that is whole, perfect, and complete. Nothing broken, nothing missing, nothing wrong. That your life has been exactly the perfect life for you to be where you are today. It's been exactly as you orchestrated it from the unseen side of life so that you can grow into love, into peace, and to expanded consciousness. It's been exactly what you need to bring forth from within you the highest and best. And so what I know is I'm grateful and thankful for the opportunity to awaken, the opportunity to think a new thought, the opportunity to have a new idea, to not be stuck with the past. I'm grateful that we can transcend our childhoods. I'm grateful that we can transcend our mistakes. I'm grateful that we can forgive other people for their mistakes, that we are all in this together doing the very best we can with all of our private and public wars. And so we welcome peace into our experience and calm. I claim for each and every one of us that we become more keenly aware of the spiritual, perfect world that exists, the beauty and intelligence that even in the midst of war is always there, even in the midst of conflict is always there. Hug a tree, walk into nature, watch Watch Wild Earth TV. Look at something beautiful, and you will be reminded that everything is okay. Love will win in the end. And so for the blessings of being together, I'm grateful, knowing that insights continue to happen as we leave this time. Awareness happens. Most of all, as Reverend Barker used to say, the power of decision. Decide to be happy. Decide to be peaceful. Let everything unlike peace and love melt away from you. So we amplify this in the next breath. Release any tension. Breathe in unconditional love and happiness. And go forth and make it a great week. And so for all of this and more, we are grateful. We let it be. And so it is. Amen. All right. Amen, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you next week or somewhere else this week. Have fun. Bye.